The fastest way to make someone obsessed is not to chase them, not to convince them, not to explain yourself. It's to deny them access and let their own mind betray them. Because the human brain does not crave what is offered. It craves what is withheld. This is the forbidden fruit tactic. And once you understand it, you will never look at attraction, power, or influence the same way again. Scarcity is not a trick. It is a law of the human mind. The moment something feels unlimited, the brain categorizes it as safe, ordinary, and forgettable. But the moment access is reduced, something changes. Attention sharpens, desire wakes up. Value is created not by what is given, but by what is missing. This is why the most powerful move is not offering more, but offering less, deliberately, calmly, without explanation. When you are always available, your presence loses weight. Your words lose tension, your attention becomes predictable, and predictability kills fascination. The mind does not respect what it can summon at will, it respects what it cannot control. The instant you step back, emotionally, mentally, energetically, the other person feels the vacuum. And the brain hates vacuums. It rushes to fill them with thoughts, assumptions, and emotional noise. This is where obsession begins. Not because you did something dramatic, but because you removed certainty. Silence becomes louder than words. Distance becomes more intimate than closeness. The other person starts assigning meaning to your absence. They ask themselves questions they never asked before. Did I matter less? Did I say something wrong? Why did the energy change? And in trying to answer those questions, they invest more emotional energy than they ever did when you were present. Scarcity turns attention into currency. When your attention is rare, it feels earned. When it feels earned, it feels valuable. The human ego is wired to desire what signals high value, and nothing signals high value like selective availability. You are no longer reacting, you are choosing, and choice is power. The moment someone realizes they no longer have automatic access to you, their perception shifts. You are no longer an option, you become a challenge. This does not require coldness or cruelty, it requires control. You don't disappear dramatically. You simply stop overgiving, you stop filling every silence. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You allow space to exist. And in that space, the other person's mind does the work for you. They remember you more vividly. They replay interactions more intensely because the brain clings harder to what it fears losing. Scarcity also flips the emotional hierarchy. When you are always present, you subconsciously communicate need. When you are selectively present, you communicate self-sufficiency, and self-sufficiency is magnetic. It suggests that your life is full, your world is stable, and your validation does not come cheaply. People are drawn to what feels complete without them. They chase what doesn't chase back. In the end, scarcity is not about absence, it's about restraint. It's the discipline of not overexposing yourself, of allowing mystery to survive, of letting value rise naturally through limitation. Because the mind doesn't obsess over what it owns, it obsesses over what it might lose. Resistance is not rejection, it is tension. And tension is the fuel of obsession. The human mind is built to push against limits, to test boundaries, to desire what does not immediately surrender. The moment something offers no resistance, interest fades. But when access is delayed, restricted, or uncertain, the mind interprets it as significance. It assumes value where there is friction. When you do not fully open the door, curiosity turns into fixation. The other person begins to lean forward emotionally. They wonder why you are not responding the way they expected, why their usual methods don't work, why they can't read you. This confusion activates the brain's problem-solving instinct, and once the mind treats a person as a problem to solve, emotional attachment deepens without permission. Resistance works because it challenges identity. The ego is accustomed to winning attention, approval, and reassurance. When those rewards are no longer automatic, the ego feels threatened. It asks a dangerous question: why not me? That question doesn't fade easily. It loops, it digs. It demands resolution, and the easiest resolution the mind can imagine is winning back what it believes it deserves. This is why saying less is often more powerful than saying everything. By holding back emotional access, you force the other person to advance. They invest effort, they initiate, they escalate. Each step they take binds them deeper, because effort creates attachment. The brain justifies effort by increasing perceived value. No one wants to believe they are chasing something unimportant. Resistance also creates contrast. When warmth appears only occasionally, it feels intense. When attention is selective, it feels meaningful. The emotional highs become sharper because they are not constant, and the mind becomes addicted to the pattern, waiting, hoping, anticipating. Anticipation is far more intoxicating than fulfillment. Fulfillment ends desire. Anticipation stretches it. This does not mean being rude, dismissive, or hostile. That breaks tension instead of building it. True resistance is calm and grounded. It is emotional composure. It is not rushing to reassure, not rushing to respond, not rushing to explain yourself. You remain present, but not easily accessed. Engaged, but not exposed. This balance keeps the other person emotionally activated while you remain in control. Over time, resistance rewires the dynamic. You stop being someone who seeks approval and become someone whose approval is sought. The emotional direction reverses. The one who pushes less begins to lead more. And leadership, even in subtle emotional forms, is deeply attractive. People are drawn to those who move at their own pace, who do not bend under pressure, who do not collapse under desire. Ultimately, resistance awakens obsession because it mirrors the human condition itself. We are drawn to what challenges us, what resists us, what refuses to be conquered easily. When you embody that resistance, not through games, but through self-mastery, you turn attraction into pursuit, curiosity into hunger, and interest into something far more dangerous. Fixation. Uncertainty is the most powerful psychological trap the mind can fall into. It is uncomfortable, unresolved, and impossible to ignore. When something is clear, the brain categorizes it, files it away, and moves on. But when something is ambiguous, the mind refuses to let it rest. It keeps returning to it, searching for patterns, meaning, and closure. This is why uncertainty doesn't fade with time. It deepens. When your intentions are not fully revealed, the other person's mind becomes the narrator. They begin constructing stories in the absence of facts. Every small detail gains weight. A delayed response becomes a signal. A neutral tone becomes a message. Silence becomes interpretation. And the more they interpret, the more emotionally invested they become. Their mind is no longer reacting to you, it is reacting to its own creations. This internal loop is what binds attention. The brain is desperate to reduce uncertainty, but it can only do so by engaging further. It replays past interactions, scanning for hidden meaning. It imagines future scenarios, trying to predict outcomes, and in doing so, it spends emotional energy continuously. Energy spent becomes attachment. The more mental effort invested, the harder it is to detach. Uncertainty also triggers fear, not fear of rejection, but fear of misjudgment. The mind worries it may have misunderstood the situation, misplayed its role, or lost something valuable without realizing. That fear sharpens focus. It pulls attention inward, and it creates vigilance. You become a point of reference the mind keeps checking against again and again without relief. This is why emotional transparency too early destroys intrigue. When everything is known, nothing is imagined. When everything is explained, nothing is explored. Mystery collapses under clarity. But when you leave space, when you don't rush to define, label, or confirm, the other person fills the space with desire. Not because you demanded it, but because their mind cannot tolerate the unknown. Control over uncertainty is not about deception, it is about pacing, revealing yourself slowly, letting layers unfold over time instead of all at once. You stay consistent in character, but selective in disclosure. This consistency creates safety, while the selectivity creates fascination. One without the other fails. Together they bind attention effortlessly. Over time, uncertainty reverses emotional leverage. The one seeking answers feels dependent. The one comfortable without them feels grounded. And grounding is magnetic. When you appear unbothered by unresolved tension, it signals inner stability. It suggests that your emotional center does not depend on external validation. That alone elevates your perceived value. In the end, the mind does not obsess over what it understands. It obsesses over what it cannot fully grasp. Uncertainty keeps you mentally present even when you are physically absent. It turns absence into influence, and influence, once rooted in the mind, does not require effort to maintain. It sustains itself through unanswered questions that refuse to be forgotten. Withdrawal is the quiet moment where power changes hands, not through confrontation, not through dominance, but through absence that is felt more deeply than presence ever was. When you stop leaning forward emotionally, the balance shifts. The other person senses the change immediately, even if they cannot explain it. Something that once felt stable now feels fragile. And fragility demands attention. Emotional withdrawal works because it disrupts expectations. The mind builds comfort around patterns. When those patterns break, alarm systems activate. What once felt guaranteed now feels uncertain, and uncertainty pulls focus. The other person begins monitoring your behavior, measuring distance, searching for signs. Their attention turns toward you more intensely than when you are fully available. Power emerges the moment you no longer seek emotional confirmation. When you stop asking for reassurance, approval, or response, you signal independence. Independence changes perception. It suggests that your emotional state is self-governed, that you are not waiting, not needing, not dependent. This is deeply unsettling to anyone who believed they held influence over you. Withdrawal does not mean disappearance. Disappearing invites closure. Withdrawal invites pursuit. So you remain visible, but unreachable, calm, but not chasing, present, but not pleading. This contrast is what destabilizes the emotional dynamic. The other person begins compensating for the distance. They initiate more, they invest more, they reveal more. And each step they take pulls them further into imbalance. As they move forward, you remain still. This stillness becomes authority. The one who moves less controls the frame. The one who reacts less dictates pace. Emotional leadership is rarely loud, it is composed. And composition under emotional pressure is perceived as strength. Strength invites alignment. Alignment invites submission. Withdrawal also triggers self-evaluation in the other person. They begin questioning their own value. Was I taken for granted? Did I misjudge my importance? Why doesn't this affect them the way it affects me? These questions create internal friction. And to resolve that friction, the mind seeks validation. Validation it now believes only you can provide. This is how withdrawal shifts power without words. You do not demand respect. You create conditions where respect becomes necessary. You do not chase desire. You allow desire to chase you. By refusing to overextend emotionally, you preserve your center. And those who preserve their center become gravitational. In the end, power does not belong to the one who needs more. It belongs to the one who can step back without fear. Withdrawal is not weakness. It is restraint. It is the decision to stop feeding a dynamic that no longer serves you. And that decision alone repositions you from participant to reference point, from seeker to source, from influence to authority. The forbidden fruit tactic is not about cruelty. It's about understanding human nature. People don't fall for what begs. They fall for what stands firm. Control your availability. Master silence. Let restraint do the work, because the most dangerous influence is not forcing desire. It's awakening it in someone else's mind and never touching it again.